In the yard where shadows play, ghosts come out at end of day. One is chosen, hides from sight, when others search in fading light. Ghost in the graveyard, someone cries, and now the chase begins with sighs. Through the dark they run and flee, hoping not to ghosted be. Laughter echoes, hearts beat fast, as they dash through night at last. A game of thrills, a spooky quest, in the graveyard, it's the best.
Welcome to Grim Grotto. My name is Dave.
And my name is Julie, and today we'll be discussing eerie childhood games that we played that honestly, when you look back as an adult, you're kind of like, I don't know if that was appropriate at that age, but
why were
we
doing that?
Yeah. So before we get into that, I kind of wanted to ask a question of the week, if you will, and that is, do you think that these eerie childhood games, so like Candyman or The Midnight Man, Bloody Mary, like those type of games, do you think they all stem from something more sinister, or do you think that they are just made up games?
I think they have to come from something sinister. Like when you look at Bloody Mary, I mean, that was a pretty brutal story of history. And
that's true. And you have Ring Around the Rosies.
Yeah.
With the whole Ring Around the Rosies, Pocket Full of Posies, Ashes, Ashes, We All Fall Down, The Plague.
Yeah, they're all form of lore.
Okay, but where's the Candyman from then? That's just a horror film.
That's just a slight variation of Santa Claus. Remember, we came to the conclusion?
No, you came to that conclusion.
So it was scary, and I was like, you're inviting Santa Claus into your house every year. He said, yeah, but the Candyman is different. I'm like, prove it. You can't prove it.
I feel like you have a Santa phobia, and you just don't want to admit that to me yet, and that's okay. I'm here for it, and I'll be there for the journey.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think some of them are, and no, you know what? I have a better hypothesis, if you will, I guess. A better theory for it. And I think that these childhood games are developed from fears. Because if you remember when you were a little kid, well, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I always tried to scare my friends or like scare my siblings, or I always tried to be scary, you know? So whether that be a spooky story, or if we're playing like hide and seek tag, or even normal hide and seek, I tend to hide in places that people don't guess, and I'll like jump down and scare them with the chance that I'll be found. But that's okay, because I got that slight bit of joy from the alarmingness of me coming out of nowhere.
You're scary. Even as a kid.
Even as a kid. But that's what I'm saying, like, I think maybe these games could be developed from fears, because if you look at some of the games, they are kind of fear-based. So the plague, people were scared of death, you know, or getting the plague in general. And I think back then at that time, 9 times out of 10, that's just what it led to.
Or the Midnight Man.
Yeah.
You think of walking around your house being chased by something you can't see. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, the unknown's pretty scary. I mean, that's why the back rooms are pretty scary. Whether they have monsters or not have monsters, the fact that you're walking around in this multi-walled office with no clear exit.
You had me at office. That was terrifying enough.
You're like the Office Space. Yeah. The hot coffee that's not flavored in any way.
Oh, yeah, the pizza party.
The pizza party, here's your raises.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like it could be developed from fear, but I don't know. As the listener, what do you think? Feel free to let us know in the comments, because I'm interested in this topic. You know, I would love to know if it's fear-based, if it's history-based, if it's just imagination-based, so feel free to let us know. But that leads us into our specific topic today, and that is eerie childhood games, and I'm going to kick it off with Ghosts in the Graveyard. Hey. One of my favorite childhood games.
You make it sound way less scary than it probably is.
I make a lot of things sound like way less scary than it probably is. That's why you're so comfortable going into haunted places with me.
Yeah, I would take any journey with you, so
yeah,
I stand by that.
Have you played Ghosts in the Graveyard?
No.
All right, well, I'm going to explain it to you. So
I have a feeling I'm about to.
We can play it. We can go out and do it. It might be a little bit scary with just the two of us, to be honest. It might be way scarier.
What?
Okay, so no, you don't have to play this game in a graveyard. I mean, if you do play it in a graveyard, make sure that you're being respectful of said graveyard. But no, it's not a graveyard game. It is more so either the sun went down and it's dark, or you're in like a haunted location or a dark building, whatever it may be. Point is, you're in a room or area where it's difficult to see. And one person is like the night watcher. So they have a flashlight and they walk around to spot the other players who are the ghost. And then when you get caught, you are now like it with the person. So, ringing a bell at all, or you really haven't played
It's like hide and seek?
Yeah, it's hide and seek with the flashlight at
Oh,
nighttime.
yeah, I did that as a kid. I don't know if we call it ghost in the graveyard.
Oh, yeah, let's go to the graveyard.
Flashlight tag? I mean, that's kind of a thing, right?
Wow, that seems like the chilled down version for babies. No, I'm kidding.
We played acting as disembodied souls.
Did you play the mannequin game then? Because I know that some people use the flashlight with that as well.
That sounds scarier somehow.
Oh, okay. Well, I could talk about that too. I wasn't planning on talking about that one, but I can get down to that one. So anyways, Ghost in the Graveyard. The reason that I bring it up is because I think it's kind of creepy. And I did do research to see if it came from a more dark source. But everything I found was, no, it's just a child's game that's been passed on for generations. And I was like, no, it has to come from somewhere. Like, it has to. There's ghost, graveyard, flashlight. Like, you're telling me that the night shift of graveyards, the people, the workers, didn't bring a flashlight around, see a ghost, and then all of a sudden it got turned into a child game? The internet is wrong.
Do all graveyards have night shift security guards?
They used to.
Really?
Didn't they?
This is a whole area of society I am unfamiliar with.
I swear they did. They used to because they would have... Yeah, they did. Now you got me confused. But no, they 100% did because there used to be grave robbers.
Oh.
Well, I mean, they probably still exist, but less frequently in like cities and stuff. But there used to be grave robbers because they would go to a site that was freshly buried, and then they would dig it up and then take like the jewelry and expensive items that was buried. Wow. Yeah. So that's why you had the night watch, because they would come and make sure that those people didn't do that. So yeah, that's what I like to believe Ghost in the Graveyard came from, but I guess it didn't. But who's to say? I said it, so now it has to be real, right?
Did you enjoy this game as a kid?
I loved this game as a kid.
Yeah, I still love this game.
Yeah, you want to go outside and play it right now? Seriously, that's what I'm saying. Like, just the two of us. And like...
Now, how does that work, though? I mean, this is hide and seek with one other person, so...
Well, yeah, it's hide and seek, but there's a flashlight. So even if I see you, if you didn't point the flashlight at me, I could stalk you through, like, the woods.
The look you gave me just now was pretty terrifying.
It should be. No, I'm kidding. But, so that would be really fun. And I loved that game. My sister and I would play it in the basement because that's where it would be dark. And we had a pool table, and I would hide under the pool table, and she would walk by with a flashlight because she wouldn't look under the pool table for some reason, and I would grab her ankle.
Oh, that's the worst. Did she scream?
Yeah, she screamed, yeah. So... yeah, I love Ghost in the Graveyard. So then the next game that I have for you actually did kind of freak me out as a child. And that is the Sandman game. Have you heard of this game?
I've heard of the Sandman.
Okay. Well, this game is really dark for a child game, I personally would say.
Okay, so we're taking it up a notch.
Yeah, we're taking it up a notch. I'm taking it up, like I just keep going up a little bit. So the Sandman game works with the power of suggestion. And what happens is one person lays on their back on the ground, and they have, they're just laying face up, have their arms rested to their sides, legs rested, and then people sit around them. And each person makes up like a story, like a very tragic story where the person is unalived at the end. And during that, they're like, and now you're getting heavy because your body's filling with sand. And when they're doing that, they draw like a line on your arm and then poke you really hard to like pretend that they're filling you with sand, and then they pretend to stitch you up. So they make like that motion. This was a kid's game. I played this in elementary school. In 5th grade, I had played this game.
That's dark.
It's dark.
Being stitched up?
Well, no.
Filled with sand?
The stories were really dark too. I remember one of my classmates, she said that I got into a car accident. That's how I died. she was just like, oh, okay, you're driving down the road. Because you're supposed to close your eyes when you're laying on the ground as the person who's becoming the Sandman. And during that, you're supposed to imagine what the person's telling the story of. And this is a whole 5th grader. And they're saying, like, oh, you're doing this, this, and this. And then, boom, a car hits you. You fly out the window because you're not wearing a seatbelt. You roll down a hill. Boom, you're gone. So then the ambulance comes, picks you up, and you're basically brought into the mortician's room. Right? That's what they're called?
Yeah, that's a very specific vocabulary for a 5th grader.
I don't think we knew what we were talking about, okay?
I rode my bike around. That's what I did in the 5th grade.
You performed rituals.
Collected baseball cards, and I was into that.
Oh, you put it on your bike, like on the spokes?
Oh, I did that too, yes. Some sidewalk chalk, Started to get into stuff that's a little embarrassing to still be into as a 5th grader, but...
Okay, well, this was a true thing. So then... And this was the same girl, I'm not going to say her name, but this was the same girl who made fun of me about the candy man.
Oh.
Same chick. So I feel like she must have had like an older sibling who did all this stuff to her. And then when she came to school, she like felt as if we were younger siblings.
She passed it on, yeah.
Right. So she told me this terrible story. And then as I'm on the mortician table, she has me, like, you have your eyes closed the whole time. And then she takes her finger and then really jabs it into my arm and like goes downward.
Yeah.
Then pats really hard as if she's filling me with sand, and then takes like her pointer finger and her thumb, pinching them together, and then putting it in as if she's sewing the thing back up as if you were to embalm somebody, Yeah. And then you do that to all the body parts, like all the ligaments, and you say, like, specifically, you're like, okay, I'm now filling you up with sand and I'm sewing it up. And then after the person's quote unquote filled with sand, you then tell them to open their eyes and stand up. And due to the power of suggestion and the story and the action, you can't sit up because you're too heavy with the sand.
Did you experience that?
I did, because I was a 5th grader and my brain wasn't fully developed. So.
What an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
But that was... Wow.
That was a child's game. So I wonder, that's why my question is, did these all come from something? And I do feel that this specific game could come from something, because it could 100% come from back in the day when they didn't have the equipment that they do have today. Did they use sand? So that, I don't know if they use sand, but I could see sand being used. So that's something,
It just sounds like something kids, even back during the plague, that era, I could see kids sitting around doing this kind of thing. Before we had our Game Boys and
our
computers.
Why do you say it like that?
I don't know.
Okay, so then the next one I have, if you're ready, you're like, oh my god. You're like, and these are all kid games. I'm like, yes,
I'm right. We're taking up a notch even more. So that's pretty tame.
I would say this one's pretty even.
Okay.
So this one, you usually do at sleepovers. And it was as light as a feather and as stiff as a board.
Oh.
So again,
I know this one.
Yeah, because I told you about this one. Or did you play this at sleepovers? Do tell.
I wasn't invited to sleepovers.
It's okay. I didn't go there. My parents were always like, I can't watch you if you're at a sleepover. I don't know what you're doing, because cell phones didn't exist at that time.
Oh, yeah.
So this one is where somebody lays face up, so same thing as the Sandman game, and then people around will put their pointer finger and their middle finger on both their hands under the person, and then they'll say stiff as a feather and light as a board. Sorry. They'll say stiff as a board, light as a feather, and then as they're saying it, they'll be like 1, 2, 3, lift, and then they'll all lift, and they're pretty successful on it, because again, this is kind of like suggestion. If somebody goes like stiff as a feather, light as a board. Sorry, I keep saying stiff as a feather.
Yeah, I mean, feathers
stiff as a board, light as a feather. See, I couldn't play this game. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. I'll just say it that way. So then you will think of yourself as light,
Is that a thing, though? I mean, thinking of yourself as light.
It is a thing. You want to try lifting me up, and then I'll think of myself as heavy, and then you'll find out real quick. Again, kid game, power of suggestion. And you'll be able to lift the kid up as a team with your 2 fingers.
What is, like, creepy about this? Does it... I guess that's what you're asking, is where do these come from? And there's something about that story. It's just a little bit off.
It sounds very... I don't know. It sounds like a ritual in a way.
Yeah. like chanting.
Yeah, because you're chanting it, you know.
Yeah, if I was a parent walking into a sleepover room and a bunch of kids chanting with candles and stuff, and somebody's name was written in blood on a piece of paper.
There was no writing.
And then they were lifting them up and chanting, and the kids' eyes were rolled back in their head.
Okay, there's no eye rolling.
You're using your imagination, but that's how I imagined it to be. I would probably freak out.
You'd freak out.
Yeah, I would.
You'd cry a bit.
I don't know about cry. I would probably either that or I'd walk away and tell myself this was a dream, or I just walked into an alternate reality that really didn't exist.
It did.
It didn't.
It did. Okay, but these were kid games. Like, that's what's mind-blowing to me.
The kids are doing that?
Yeah, kids. Well, I mean, they used to. I mean, now they probably
are on their Game Boys.
Yeah. But the final one that I have for you, and see, this is where I think that it could come from a fear, but it's the game Buried Alive. So, you're like, who did you know play? I'm like, my whole class, okay? So, this time, instead of laying down, you have the person facing down on the ground. And
already safe?
What?
This already sounds safe.
And then somebody else stands in front of them and, like, holds their hands, pulling their upper body up. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of like you're dragging them.
Yeah.
And then they have them held a little high until their knees are about off the floor. Again, they're kids. They're light. They can lift each other up. And then they slowly sink them back to the ground. And then at the end, when they're, like, touching the ground, they're like,
I know what you're talking about.
Oh, you know
Is that where it feels like you're still going down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you did play this game.
I think so. Maybe you've unlocked
some
forgotten memories of my childhood that I
buried
alive.
Yes.
Buried those memories down. Did you do this one?
This one I didn't do.
Okay.
This one I was scared of because I had
that I'm more
fear.
Courageous than you are.
Well, I also watched Kill Bill as a child, so there's that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I didn't want to be buried alive.
Wow.
Just wow. You're not going to tell me about your experience? You sound like you had an experience. Were you part of this? Did you do the burying?
I think I was buried.
And how did that make you feel?
It was weird. It's kind of like the, you know that thing that you can do if you're in a doorway and you press your arms like upward against the door frame and then you walk away and your arms continue to rise?
Yes.
It's like the same kind of feeling.
I also would pretend to be Spider-Man in the doorway. Like you could.
Oh, when you climb up?
Yeah, you could climb.
I did that in my childhood home. There was a hallway that was just narrow enough where I could put my back on one wall, my feet on the other, and I'd try to like shimmy my way up.
And then you get to the top and you're like, oh, do I just drop down now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the game Buried Alive.
Yeah.
These are so creepy. I mean, now as an adult, if I did see children playing it, I think I would be freaked out. Although
especially the
I
Buried
played
Alive
it
one,
as
like
a child.
seeing a kid do that, you're like, that doesn't look safe. You're gonna twist their arms off, and their face is like buried in the ground. Like, what are you doing?
That's the one that gets you? No, the Sandman gets me. To hear a kid be like, this is how you're gonna pass away, and then like pretend to fill them with sand. That's
a little weird.
That would get me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for taking this trip down memory lane.
Yeah, thank you for taking me.
Of course. And as a listener, if you had done any of these games, I would personally love to hear which games that you participated in. And if you participated in any other game that wasn't mentioned today, let us know, because maybe you'll unlock one of our core memories that we forgot about. These are just the games that I remembered, so that's why we're talking about these ones. Also, if you would like, you could keep up with us on social media under Instagram. That is Grim Grotto Podcast. We also have an email as well. If you would like to write in any listener stories, we would love to hear them and read them if you would like. Just be sure to write that in the email so we know. And our email is grimgrottopodcast@gmail.com. I also have a Ko-fi now if you would like to purchase some cute cryptid stickers. Absolutely adorable, I must say. I mean, I made them, but yeah. So the Ko-fi is Grim Grotto Apothecary. And as always, if the grotto is grim, explore